morning, Coffee Chat with Ann Payton, and I have a very special guest today. Her name is Rickie Long, and she's the owner of Crafts and Creations in Greenwood. And you'll have to come in and see her shop. It's beautiful. They have classes, and they have a store where they sell all of their products. It's a really nice place to come look around and find some good Christmas presents. So, okay, Rickie Long has been involved in the domestic violence category, I guess I'll say, involved in some legislation, and I just want to turn it over to you, Rickie. And
well, hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. So, tell us how your involvement was, and also maybe why it was so important to you.
Okay. Well, I grew up in a violent family,
Yeah.
like lots of people did, and at some point you realize it isn't normal.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't healthy. It isn't good.
Right.
And there are very, very few bridges out at that time. And there were none. There was not an infrastructure support. So I graduated high school in 1973, was out on my own, and my sister and I both made feminism. So, I'm an old lady. But definitely the equality for women became a dominant piece of
Right.
where we put our efforts.
Mm-hmm.
So I was one of the co-incorporators for the Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Myself, my sister Barbara, and a woman named Norma Card. And we opened one of the first domestic violence programs in the state of Indiana. We were the second shelter right behind Fort Wayne. And we had a few different philosophies about it. We were not a secret location. I think if you have to hide, it gives strength and power to the abuser.
Mm-hmm.
So I am very much into the dynamic of the relationship as much as the consequences of it.
Okay.
So having said that, at the time, we were making it up. We didn't know. We didn't know what we were doing.
The first people.
We were the guinea pigs. Yeah.
But thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. People now think it's perfectly normal for women to have credit cards, but
Right.
women couldn't have credit cards until 1977.
Oh my gosh.
So we're out there cash only. Your dad could have a credit card and give it to you. Your husband could have a credit card and give it to you, but you couldn't have a credit card. Which makes it a little difficult to get loans for mortgages and
Right.
cars. And so, we've covered a lot of ground, and people say, well, I'm not a feminist. I'm like, well, I don't care what name you put on it, but I'm into equal rights.
Right.
Across the board,
Exactly.
period. So,
Well, maybe the people that say that,
Didn't live through
didn't
the other.
live through some of that of not being able to have a
Yeah.
bank account or a credit card, and always relying
Right.
on the man in
the generosity or the mood
Right.
of the man, yeah.
right.
So, mandatory reporting is one of the ones that I pushed for,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a sensitive topic. There's feelings on both sides of it. Legislating that domestic violence was a criminal activity was my primary goal.
Mm-hmm.
Marital rape, a criminal activity. Child abuse, a criminal activity. Lots of people cared passionately, and it matters, about getting coverage for mental health care and recovery for victims.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, every time it came down to money, I want the money into making it illegal. Then we'll deal with the victims.
Right.
That, I was not always the most popular person for that belief, honestly. But I think until it is into the infrastructure, the rest of it, and again, I don't know how feminist your group is or how radical, but there are so many examples of that still today, where we deal with the fallout consequences, but we don't mandate the legislation. And so you rely on case law for protection. Case law can change. It's subject to interpretation, even at the Supreme Court level. Roe versus Wade is an example of that wasn't in the law, therefore it can be overturned by the law, by the courts. Nobody thought that was going to happen. So while I wanted funding, once it's on the books as a law, that's a lot harder to undo.
Right.
But we didn't get mandatory reporting for child abuse until, and I'm not good at my dates, but it was mid 70s, late 70s. So, just people don't realize how far we've come in a lifetime.
Right.
A lifetime.
Exactly.
And when you give up hope, or when you aren't sure you can do something, remember what can be done in a lifetime. I mean,
Exactly.
and we look at technology and we celebrate, how much technology did in a lifetime. Well, the laws are more important than technology.
Right. Well, and I feel for what you've said, because if there is no consequences against this criminal behavior,
which isn't even criminal at the point they're engaging in it.
Right.
It may be morally reprehensible.
Right. But that just would keep everything going on.
Oh, yeah, it's generational. It's
Right.
passed on as a family tradition and part of the family culture.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It really is. And you're right. Some of the greatest things that people have done and changed in a lifetime are those people that have a passion to help, people in this arena or that arena. It depends on what you're passionate for. Yeah. So, wow.
So I think it's Tony Robbins. I'm very much into self-improvement, self-development. But I think it's Tony Robbins who says everybody overestimates what they can do in a year and underestimates what they can do in 5 years or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's true. We set these grandiose plans and then we fall short and we're disappointed. Whereas if we continue to set grandiose plans, 5 years later, you look back and go, oh, wow, that I sort of did a miracle here.
Yeah.
But we tend to be very focused. And again, that belief is why I believe so much in infrastructure. Right. When you change the infrastructure, you change the underlying assumptions.
Okay, gotcha.
And then, so when you grow up knowing, if I tell my teacher something will happen,
right,
you have a different mindset than I'm a victim and this is what Dad's doing and there's nothing I can do about it.
I can do.
And that's the damage when you think there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, you lose hope.
You lose who you are. You lose power, control.
Exactly. That's kind of sad.
Well, or kind of glorious.
Right. I mean, yeah.
Because understanding the personal power that everybody has to change, to have an impact on the world, and to make their own choices regardless of who's holding the credit card, that's the definition of empowering. To understand that that's a switch that can be flipped on in somebody's life.
Right.
So.
And your whole outlook is different.
Oh, yeah, your whole life is different at that point. Yeah.
Wow. And you said the home that you started was?
Turning Point in Johnson County.
In Johnson County.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. That must have been a major undertaking.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of blindly doing
Yeah. Well, we would do crazy things. The police, even after we got the law passed, the police didn't know what to do with it. So police training was a big part of it. And we were lucky, really, in Columbus. It's a fairly progressive city, Columbus, Indiana.
Uh-huh.
And we had a lot more support. And we had some support from people, in higher places. Cal Brand was one of my mentors, and he was a wonderful man. And he kept things in perspective. He said, Rickie, your job is not to mandate anybody to cross the bridge you've built. Your job is not to carry them across or bully them across or plead them across or pay for them to cross. Your job is to keep the bridge strong. So, and that was so helpful for that personal responsibility of who didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Because otherwise.
It's personally on you. Who makes it and who doesn't.
Exactly. And being normally a little bit more caregiving as a woman,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
it would be so easy to put all that on your
Yeah.
shoulders.
Yeah.
Wow.
So being in charge of the infrastructure, you know, is also empowering in its own way.
Right.
You know, and it's a way to pass that on and say, I'm not in charge of your decisions.
Right.
I'm just in charge of making sure you have options,
Options.
and I can do that.
And then it's also one of the things that I talk about in my book is you have to build that decision making muscles. If you're not used to making your own decisions and other people are making them all for you,
Right.
you're when you first step out, you're going to stumble. So that's a learning ground for
Right.
you to start doing that. Like, I can make and I have full control over my
Right.
decisions,
Right.
and that itself would be empowering.
Right. There's and it's a philosophical thing, you know, which I actually 3 days ago had a conversation with my cousin, and I was saying I had done this new class, and it was another layer of what I already knew, but they were presenting it in like the most basic way, but building to extreme points, and I really appreciated it. And they were saying you are 100% responsible for the life you have, 100%. And I've always said things like, you don't control the storm, but you control how lightly you ride through it, you know. Okay. So, you know, which is coming back to you're in charge of your attitude and all that. But this was taking it a step further in a form of, you know, manifest philosophy of you did not call up the storm, but you are still in charge of what happens to you in this storm.
In the storm.
And my cousin was saying, well, you know, that's not true. You know, you know, if this swamps your boat or whatever, you're not responsible. And I'm like, you're responsible for choosing to keep breathing, keep fighting, or not. So
Right.
you are responsible for whatever life you have from the moment this tsunami hits you.
Right.
You're still responsible, whether you call up the tsunami or not. Whether you call up the wealth or not, whether you call up the success or not, whether you call up, you know, and they were talking about, you know, you have a heart attack, you have a health, you know, you have a car accident. I came back from a car accident. They said I may never walk again. You know, that wasn't acceptable to me. It wasn't acceptable.
Exactly.
That's not what happened, because it was not
acceptable to you.
Yeah. And so I have lived it to be true, but this is again in your face going, how much have you accepted that you didn't need to? And that whole victim, you know, the whole victim mentality is someone did this to me.
Right.
Well, you can say this whatever happened for me to learn from, for me to overcome, for me to exercise those decision making. It happened for me, not to me.
Right.
And I'm not a victim, because if I was a victim, that means I could be a victim tomorrow, and whatever that I don't understand could be coming around the corner at me.
Right.
But if I refuse to be a victim, then whatever comes around the corner tomorrow is not going to defeat me, because I learned today. And I'm not a victim. And because I'm not a victim of whatever, and just the way you live your life is differently. You don't live in fear then. You know,
Exactly.
You don't live by shrinking up to take up less space. You don't live in unawareness of consequences. You live with informed choices. And it's far better than being the victim and believing that you're helpless and you know, looking for someone else to solve your problems. That 100%. And again, this course goes on and says, what you have to do is live as though you were the person that you aspire to be. So if you are going to be the strong person, you have to live as though you're a strong person. You have to make decisions as though you're a strong person.
Right.
You know, and so if you're swamped by the storm, you have to swim as though you're going to make it.
Person.
Yeah. And so how many times do we self-limit and say, yeah, I'm never going to make it to shore? So I'm doing personal improvement still at my age. You know, I'm 68. And I'm still going, I'm trying to eliminate the word can't.
Yes.
Just totally trying to eliminate it.
Right.
And back again, I have a lifetime of social work and working at that. This is my retirement, by the way, my little boy store. This is what I do when I'm in my downtime. But to eliminate that word it becomes more subtle, It's no longer I can't do something, because you say, well, I can do that, and now it becomes, do I want to put the effort in? It doesn't eliminate choice,
right.
Do I want to work that hard? Do I want to put off other things to get this one done? So it requires a complexity of thought that's saying I can't.
Right.
Right. Doesn't
so you can, but you have to choose to reorganize or reallocate funds to do what it is you want to do, and you choose that.
Yes, and that comes back to, it's all up to you.
It's all up to me.
It's all up to you.
Well, and I noticed too that, kind of similar with what you were saying, when people read my book and they see some of the trauma, they're like, I'm surprised you're a joyful person. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying. Yeah. This was done for me because I have become very strong and want to pass that on to others.
Right. I would say all of my favorite people suffered trauma. Right. It makes us more sensitive to ourselves, to the world, to the other people. I think it makes us kinder. Right. I think it makes us more thankful. Oh my gosh, I'm so appreciative of what I have. I do think it sort of lets us give that 5-year window of, oh my gosh, look what I did get done. Right. All my favorite people have that complexity of overcoming. And sometimes, it could be a birth defect. It could be, it could
something
be
that you
accident.
Can't change, but you can
still
reorganize and decide on how you're going to live your life with it.
Yeah, we've only got one life. Let us absolutely do that. Do something fine with it.
Exactly.
So if you're saying I want to have an impact, and here I am, as I said, 68, still wanting to have an impact, and I look around, and especially post-COVID, people are so lonely.
They are so lonely.
And they have lost so many of the casual connections. They're just gone. The world changed during COVID. Good, bad, or otherwise, it changed. And so, if this is the place where, come on in, hang out, talk, sit down. Women used to have so many ways to build communities.
Right.
We've lost a lot of that, and I look at my daughter, who's, a very talented, wonderful person, but she's married, she's got 2 kids, she's got a demanding job. Where is her community? Where's her support infrastructure? Right. And that's terrible that women, but we all do it. If I've got responsibilities, the first thing that goes off the list are the things that feed me. Right. Because I need to be there for everybody else. Exactly. So
it's kind of like self-care needs to be mandatory.
Well, it needs to be taught.
Yes.
When we're taught you can't, you're limited, I will give you what you need,
right.
Then you've abdicated so much of yourself. We were blank slates that got written on with the negative and the small and the, yeah. And so to take charge of that eraser and say, oh, heck no. That, excuse me, that was not what was supposed to happen in my life.
That's right.
And my dad would say things to me like, oh my gosh, Rickie, you could have been anything if you'd been a boy. And I'm like, well, so what can I be now? Where are the limits of not being a boy? Well, that was pretty easy to find out, right? Credit card number 1. But
that still amazes me.
It is the questions then you start asking.
Right.
And so so following through, backtracking a little bit on that, I try not to say can't anymore. After you realize how many times you say can't in some way or another to yourself about what you're going to do, then you start saying, okay, I'm not going to ascribe feelings to that. So like we recently had a flood in our house, and we had 2 days later got hit by the tornado, so we've got roof damage. It's a mess. My house is a mess. All my stuff's in storage, all the things. It's really bad.
All disorganized and hard to deal.
Yeah. And so people keep saying how frustrating, and it's like I don't want to live 6 months frustrated.
Frustrated.
And so I'm not letting that word, because a lot of the words that we pull up or give people or write on their blank slates, are
Right.
Exactly. So now I say, it's an inconvenience, but I'm going to get through it, or I say, we're not wounded, we're not harmed, we're not financially impacted, we've got good insurance, nobody was hurt. This is just, it's a hiccup to get through.
Right.
And it puts it so
and
much
grateful for
that
maybe
I
what
have
some
insurance.
other,
Yeah.
that maybe other people don't have.
But you see that done to kids, and I see it with my grandkids. She'll say, she's left-handed, and she'll say, I can't do that, I'm left-handed. And I'm like, you can do it. You're smart, you're resourceful, and it may be a little bit more difficult, or you have to learn a new trick, but you can do that. But there's hundreds of things that we give kids, So you have a kid who has allergies, so he doesn't feel good in the spring a lot, he doesn't have the energy. And so you start saying, well, you just don't have the energy of your siblings, or, you're just not as curious, or you're just quieter by nature. Well, this kid grows up going, oh, I'm just quiet, and I don't, and then you find out, I have allergies.
Right.
How long have I lived a lifestyle, made decisions based on what I was told
from teachers or family?
Yeah, from our mothers.
Mothers.
People who want the best for us are giving us excuses that diminish us because we don't know any better. We don't go into it saying,
Mom, you're wrong.
Well, we don't go into it saying, I'm going to empower them with everything that happens is for them.
Right.
And I hear my daughter now say to her daughter, she'll say, it's like, I came out of the depths and only made it halfway out, but my goal was to have my daughter make it all the way out. Yeah. And so her goal is to elevate her kids. And I go, oh, another, what did we do in a lifetime? We moved from here to here in a trajectory. But she'll say to her kids, everybody's got something they struggle with. This one's yours, and this one can be solved. So you're really lucky. I mean, it's like, I have to wear glasses, but I'm really lucky because mine can be solved. Some people are still searching for their solution, and it's just, yes, that's how we have to view the world. That's how we, so, coming from the home that was a hot mess to saying, I'm going to change this so that other people don't have to go through it, to, okay, that's done. What next? And it has been a wonderful life, and now I am at the other end going, I don't choose to stay in drama or trauma because it's not good for me.
Right.
I'm glad someone's still doing that work. It's not over,
Right.
I'm not letting people write on my blank slate anymore. I'm never going to be a blank slate again. I'm going to hold out there that this is an inconvenience, but it's not frustrating. It's something to cope with.
Right.
That didn't happen to me, and I'm not a victim. It happened for me, and I'm seeing, what am I supposed to learn this time?
And you can do that while you're bawling.
Oh yeah. It's not.
What am I supposed to learn?
Well, that's a physiological release of stress.
I know.
Part of self-care is 5 minutes of crying.
That's right.
Part of self-care.
For everyone.
For everyone.
Not just women.
Yeah, highly recommended.
Highly
and bubble
recommended.
baths. So.
Yeah.
But I do think we have way more control than we give ourselves credit for to manifest and to live the life that we choose. And I guess I'll say, people think, oh, well, you can't manifest out of, but I don't believe that. You believe in prayer, you believe in all the religions have some version of it. You believe in karma, you believe in meditating. All the religion, all the great philosophies, everything of civilization has some version of it. If you believe you can learn to reach out your hand and pick something up that impacts the world, why does that reach stop at the end of your hand? If you can pick up the phone and reach someone around the world and impact the world, then where are you really stopped other than where you choose to believe you are stopped? So I do believe the quest and the goal of life is to remove as many limits as we can in this lifetime, and I think that will take us further in the next. So
that's so awesome.
And if you do that through art, which is what I'm choosing to do now because it gives me daily joy. I literally have an alarm on my phone that goes off at 1 o'clock every day, and it says make something.
Make something.
That's my 1 o'clock alarm.
Oh.
And if I haven't made anything yet, then it's stop and I make
something.
And I
doing something for yourself.
Yeah,
creatively.
So this is one of my creations, and I've got
I think they
paintings
can
that I
see
do.
that.
It doesn't matter. It's
That is
make
beautiful.
something. You know,
Right.
make something, and it renews the spirit. I think we are tied to our hearts and that need to express. And
Right.
at first, my drawings were very dark, because that's what I had to express. But then you get tired of the dark and you start drawing the violets and
Right.
the
sunshine.
So it's all okay. But everybody's got a piece of their heart they need to. Don't let and again, I wish I was better at names and quotes, but it's don't let that pain live inside. Express it and give it its own place so that you
Right.
can heal. It can't stay in there. So
Right.
whether your way of expressing it out is communication, doing videos, writing books, doing art, writing music, hugging people, being a
Right.
social worker, however it is, do it. Just
Right.
do it and do it without limits because there are no limits. There are no limits.
No limits. Just
And you're not a
figure it
blank
out.
slate.
And I'm not a blank slate.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, this has been great. I've learned so much from you
well,
as
thanks
well.
for stopping in. It
Yeah.
was so fun to pop into your shop and to just get to know you that day. So I'm so glad you kept my card and came up to say hi.
Me too. This is a wonderful shop. So if you do get to Greenwood, please come into Crafts and Creations. And like she said, this is a social place. If you want to just come hang out, you'll get a lot of wisdom coming out of this lady.
I can teach you how to paint furniture too.
Okay, there you go. I might take that class as well. So thank you so much.
It was a
Rickie.
pleasure. Thank you.
It really was, and you've spoken a lot of wisdom that we need to remind ourselves of because we sometimes forget.
Especially the people going through trauma.
Right.
It's this world teaches hopelessness. Our news teaches hopelessness, and a lot of aspects in our life teaches hopelessness and powerlessness, and
Right.
you got to turn that off. You got to turn it around.
Right.
If you and you can.
And you can.
And you can.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, and I will talk to you soon. Bye from Ann Payton.
Bye.